We're going to call this meeting of the Personnel and Animal Welfare Committee to order. Myself and my colleague, Mr. Price, are present, and we have a quorum. I'm going to recommend that items 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10 be put on the consent calendar.
I'm sorry, 5, 6.
5, 6, 7, 8, and 10. Without objection. And do we have speakers on those items? Is it just one?
Yeah. You don't have to hear it. You don't have to hear it. Oh, no, he can go right now, and he can go.
Right. We have one speaker on those items, Mr. Wayne Spindler. Mr. Spindler, if he's not present, I'm sure he's in the spillover room. If we could give him a few moments to come in and give his testimony. Mr. Spindler, you have 2 minutes on the entire agenda.
What about public comment?
Public comment we'll take at the end.
Oh, okay, sure. Okay. So we got the new puppet here. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, okay, we're on the first of these fucking items. Let's see here. 19 personnel authority. Fuck you. We don't want any more spending on staff. Animal killers. Number 2, administrative code unfreezing means hiring people without background checks. Like our police chief that stole $1.5 million. No. Then we have more shit like that on 3. No. Voluntary payroll deductions, updated language, non-union. No, number 4. Make sure you are represented by a union. Unions are good. Unions can strike and shut this city down. That's what you need. You need to legally, I use the word legally, blackmail these cocksuckers up here to give you more money so they'll raise the taxes and everybody will get paid until the city goes bankrupt, yes. And then number 5, vacation benefits. We support number 5. We want more vacations. We want 8 months worth of vacations per year for every city employee that's worked 10 or more years here without a disciplinary hearing. Did you know that? And Mr. Price, it was his idea. Thank you, Mr. Price. And then we have the water and power meter settler supervisor. We're supporting that. I'm running out of fucking time here. Oh, number 9, sexual assault. If you're a cop, you can sexually assault anybody. We support that too. Why not? You're all a bunch of criminals anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler.
Thank you.
And for those of you who have never attended a meeting at City Hall in the last few years, you should be aware, number 1, that we don't necessarily support any of the things that people say, but it's their right to say them. And we have constrained some folks in the past and lost lawsuits, and so we are, at least for now, under more careful considerations and have to allow some of that kind of thing. But we apologize for those of you who weren't expecting it. And so we will now vote on the consent calendar. Items 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10. Mr. Englander has joined us, so I'll give him a moment just to make sure that he didn't want to speak to any of those items. 6, 7, 8, and 10. Okay, so those items will pass without objection. On number 1, we will approve the CAO report. Number 3, we'll note and file that report. Number 5, we'll approve the CAO recommendations and city attorney report and draft ordinance. Numbers 6 through 8, we will approve the LADWP report recommendations. And item 10, we will approve that motion.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If I can ask, you can film all you want, but if you could shut the lights off on your cameras, that'd be great. Thanks. Yeah, no, there was others behind
Others
you
in the room.
with lights on, and yeah, but you could film
you.
just the light. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Next, we will take item.
You didn't want the consent calendar on film?
Just told everyone it's going to be at the end. Item number 12.
Item 12, CLA and Department of Animal Services reports relative to a recommended policy to allow community members to care for found dogs and cats under certain guidelines.
Tristan Noack, CLA. Good afternoon. So this is a report back on an item that was considered on June 20th, 2018 at the PAW meeting, which was about a DAS and Board of Animal Services Commissioners report to create a new policy that would allow private citizens to provide home care for a found dog or cat that is not wearing a license tag for up to 30 days. This policy is proposed based on what some other cities are doing. It can help alleviate overcrowding in shelters, it can save the department money, and it can give some lost animals better medical and home care if needed.
Anything else on this item?
Nothing specific.
I have a couple of questions. Do we have an estimate for how many dogs and cats this change would keep out of shelters?
No, we really don't. There are a number of communities within the city who do have, they call safe at home programs. We call them shelter at home. I know that, for example, in Laurel Canyon, I see notices posted all the time, and I see successful stories of getting the animals returned to their homes. I also see a similar one going on up in Santa Clarita. These are just things that I kind of monitor on Facebook, but I don't think we really have an idea of the number. We won't until we run it for 6 or 12 months and keep the numbers, keep the stats.
Yeah, and just, I had this kind of situation once when I was a West Hollywood resident, and I ran across 2 lost dogs and didn't really want to put them into the county shelter system. So, we took responsibility, posted signs, did everything we could, and then it turns out the owner lived about half a block away from where we lost them and saw the signs posted probably 100 times and said, oh, these signs went up too far after the time when our dog was lost. Can't be for us. And they finally read the sign and reclaimed their dogs. And we kept them out of the shelter and made sure they got back to the right place. So.
And the advantage of us having a program like this is that when the people who have these animals that they're sheltering at home find them, they notify us, they send us a picture, they send us any microchip information because they have them scanned, and then we have the opportunity then to help them find the owner. And our plan is to have something on the website so that you can actually see the pictures, that the people who have the animals at home can view them. We'll have to work around, we're not going to send people who are looking for a companion animal to someone's home, but we'll have to work out a process for them to meet the animal if it's not someone they already know.
No, I think it's a very good process. Any costs that are associated with this?
It'll be just some staff time, but probably no more staff time than checking the animals in and having to care for them for a month. At the end of the month, the person who's found the animal and has been promoting it and advertising it and trying to get it home will have the option of either coming in and, if it's a dog, buying a dog license and effectively adopting it, or turning it into the shelter after 30 days, and then we'll rehome it at that point.
And do you have a system in place to track found dogs and cats being cared for by the private citizens?
Yes, it'll be tracked through our animal management database.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? If not, this item will be approved. I'm sorry. There are public comments. My mistake. So thank you for your presentation. Public comments from Phyllis Doherty, followed by Cherie Shankar and Lee O'Brien. And you could all come up. Okay.
Phyllis Doherty with Animal Issues Movement. In the ideal world, it sounds wonderful. But of course, there's going to be people like the guy that just had to get his dog back that someone found and then sold it on offer up right away. So not everyone in the world treats animals that well. The problem with this is that as soon as the city decides that the city has an obligation to pick up strays. That's state law. And as soon as they decide that they are going to hire an employee or a contractor, which this is a contracting arrangement, they become the owner of the dog. You're liable for everything that happens with that dog, civilly and criminally, either way, if it's harmed or if it attacks, if something goes wrong for that dog. So is the owner liable for it, the person that has the insurance on it. If it bites in someone else's possession, they're still liable. The animal does not change ownership in 30 days. It is 90 days under Code 2080. They should suggest that. That means that person has to keep it, and the city retains liability for all expenses
Thank you.
for 90
Thank you.
days.
Your time's up. Thank you.
Cherie Shankar. I am just here to support this suggestion. Anything we can do, even in small increments, to save more lives. This is a common sense, suggestion or policy change, and I'm very much in support of it. And of course, anything can go wrong with any situation, but anybody who picks up an animal and brings it into their home, they obviously are caring, and as long as they report the animal to animal services so the owner has a chance to find it, that's what matters.
Thank you.
Hi, Lee O'Brien, and I'm in support of it, and I just want to say that I understand that shelters are overburdened, they're understaffed, they're underfunded, and anything that can help alleviate some of those burdens on the shelters while keeping animals alive and safe until the owners are found, I support that. And in addition, it keeps them socialized in a loving home environment. So if the animal does end up having to go up for adoption, it's just going to help the animal find a home at that time too. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, if there are no further comments by members, we will now approve the item, approve the CLA and Department of Animal Services reports, and that will be the case without objection. Item number 11.
Item 11, continue from August 1st, 2018. CLA report in response to motion, Bloomfield Carezzo Farrell, relative to prohibiting the manufacture and sale of fur products, including apparel made in whole or in part of fur of any fashion accessory beginning January 1st, 2020.
Tristan Knack, CLA. So this is a report responding to 6 questions that were posed by the chair at our August 1st, 2018 meeting. I guess I'll just take those in turn now because that's, most of the extent of the report. So I'll start with all the questions first. First was, what economic impacts with respect to businesses, jobs, and revenues will result from the ban? Second, why do other localities exempt fur harvested from trapped animals from their bans? Third, what other local jurisdictions have banned fur products, and what is the nature of these bans? Fourth, how can the city enforce a fur ban, and how costly would enforcement be? Fifth, how will this affect the city's religious communities? For example, Streamel, which are fur hats worn in some Orthodox Jewish communities. And sixth, is there any way to address real fur that is advertised and sold as artificial fur? So to provide some context for those unfamiliar, 3 cities right now have, in California, already have ordinances banning fur products to some extent. One of the attachments on my report, maybe attachment A, provides an overview of what's going on in those various ordinances. So the first question, what economic impacts with respect to businesses, jobs, and revenues will result from the ban? So our Office of Finance does not keep track of fur sales specifically, but throughout all of California, the retail sales in 2012, according to the State Board of the Economic Census, the total sales of fur products was $360 million in California. If we are to assume that Los Angeles has a similar proportion of the total retail sales as we might for fur sales, that'd be $25.9 million. Presumably, it's going to be a little bit higher than that because we're Los Angeles and we have a lot of luxury stuff. And San Francisco, the city of San Francisco estimated figures between $11 million and $40 million a year for their fur sales. Two, why do other localities such as West Hollywood exempt fur harvested from trapped animals in their bans? So all of the aforementioned cities, West Hollywood, Berkeley, and San Francisco, have these sorts of exclusions because they're required by the California Fish and Game Code, which Section 3039B specifically says that it allows the purchase and sale of products or handicraft items made from fur-bearing animals and non-game animals lawfully taken under the authority of a trapping license. However, it's worth noting that in 2016 and 2017, there were 0 pelts, fur pelts purchased by dealers in 2016, 2017 from trapped fur. There were some independent sales, which I can go into later if you're curious about. And apologies. So how can the city enforce a fur ban, and how costly would enforcement be? This is, in a sense, a policy decision. I got some information from the Director of Environmental Health in San Francisco's Department of Public Health, which I know we don't have. And that's how they're going to be enforcing the ban. It's going to be mostly a complaint-based process. After receiving a complaint, they'll send out a technician. They'll have the technician ask the vendor who the complaint was filed against to produce receipts proving that the fur that they purchased was either originated from a trapped animal or originated from a time before the ordinance took place. And so presumably we could take a similar approach. Number 5, how will this address the city's religious populations? I looked into this a bit. I found that artificial fur strimel, for example, because that was what was brought up specifically in last meeting, are used in Israel. There's, of course, some controversy over that, but none of the other cities took any sort of measures, specifically speaking, to religious considerations in their ordinances. And 6th, something that was brought up in many of the public comments last time were about faux and artificial fur that is mislabeled, particularly from raccoon dogs, rabbits, coyotes, regular dogs, or various other animals. The city doesn't have much in the way that we could do about this specifically because it's already federally prohibited by the Federal Fur Products Labeling Act, which is also a complaint-based process, and several retailers each year basically have to deal with these complaints and are charged and fined. So let me know if you have any other questions.
So how does the city verify that a product is made with trapped fur?
So the San Francisco Department of Public Health says that they will need to produce receipts from the merchants where they purchase the fur. This, of course, will become more complicated to say, okay, well, how can you say which pelts went to which product? And that is a separate issue that will need to be addressed. However, when you look at the statistics available from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife for the amount of furs that were taken. It's drastically reduced over the last couple of years. So the total licenses in 2014 and 2015 were 253, and in 2016, 2017 were 120. And the total pelts taken in 2015 and 2016 were, pelts taken and sold were 1,242, whereas in 2016 and 2017, it was 140 total pelts. If you consider that the average coat might take between 10 and 20 fox pelts per se, or the average stole might take between 4, this is, I don't know, 8 to 10 coats, 8 to 15 coats maybe, or 10 to 15 stoles California-wide. So it is something worth considering, and I suppose having the vendors produce a receipt from where they purchased their pelts is a way of addressing this, but it doesn't seem that there's a large enough trapped fur economy to really sustain any manufacturer of fur products.
Okay. Other questions from colleagues? Okay, we have a number of speakers, and in the interest of time, because we may lose members, I'm going to limit it to 15, maximum of 15 speakers in opposition, and a maximum of 15 speakers in favor, and then we'll just read the rest into the record.
Could I just ask, and it's under your prerogative as the chair, I would just ask, we do have what I think will be a very, very quick item, if we could put it on hold just for 1 second, only because we have some folks here, and I think we only have one speaker on number 9, if I'm correct. It would go very quick, but they're also pretty high-ranking LAPD officers that need to get back to some cases that are critical and timely, because I happen to know what their caseload is. And so if you could entertain that for a moment, and if you guys are all okay with that, if we could just jump to that for a second.
If we could very quickly hear item
so
number 9.
they can get back to solving some pretty incredible crimes we've got going on here in the city. And I only ask as the chair of public safety sitting here, and I see them here knowing they're.
Thank you, Councilman.
Item number 9,
thank you.
Motion Martinez Krikorian relative to increasing the reimbursement rate for all forensic evidentiary examinations conducted by the Sexual Assault Response Team Centers at the request of the Los Angeles Police Department.
Councilman, I'm William Hayes, Commanding Officer, Robbery Homicide Division, and I have with me
Christina Takeshita. I'm the Laboratory Director of the Crime Lab.
the motion before you is a request to increase the reimbursement to sexual assault, the examination of sexual assault victims. The current value or reimbursement is $730 to the provider. That was enacted in 2001. So obviously in 17 years, costs have gone up, not only for staffing, but for the exams themselves. So we're asking that it go to be consistent with the county, which is $1,020. That covers most of the costs, but obviously this is an important issue with sexual assault victims. What we're looking at is an average of about 1,458 victims a year. Last year there were 15,001 exams done, and this year to date there's 997. Those exams include the victims of sexual assault, the suspects to identify evidence that's related to the sexual assault, and then we also look at and doing sexual assault victims from other jurisdictions. So if an individual is in this city, was assaulted in another city, that's outside the county, and they report it here, we'll do the sexual assault exam as a courtesy, and obviously to prevent the victim from being further victimized, to make sure those things get done. In most cases, those are reimbursed, but I can't say in all cases, but it's an important factor to prosecute the case, and more importantly, to make sure that the victim receives the appropriate treatment.
So I presume, based on the reimbursement, that these folks aren't city employees.
That's correct. We use rate treatment centers. There are 3 that I'm aware of right now in Los Angeles. You've got Santa Monica, the county at USC, and then the the one in the valley at Northridge. Those are our primary, but the other thing that happens is if a victim goes to another hospital that is not a sexual assault center, or what we'll do is we get a sexual assault nurse to come there if the victim is not able to be transported someplace else. Obviously, some of these victims are brutalized significantly and have to remain in the hospital for the injuries they received during that, and it's not feasible for them to be transported to a facility. So what it makes arrangements for is the nurse to be brought to that facility, do the exam, and then the evidence collected.
So with the outdated rates that we've been reimbursing, does that leave the centers sort of subsidizing the cost?
I would say most of them have been doing out of the goodness of their hearts for the right reasons. What it has done over the years, though, is you've seen a number of hospitals refuse to do the exams because they are so costly. What happens is not only is the nurse responsible for doing that, they may be responsible for testifying in court and the follow-up with that. So what you saw over years was, if I recall, in the 2000, early 2000, it went from 12 centers to 7 centers. Other hospitals, like I said, we can bring the victim in, but we'll have to transport them to one of the centers. And right now, the 3 predominant ones that we use in Los Angeles.
And also, to add to that, for the chair, so we'd worked on this in public safety for a number of years when we actually had what I think is just insult to injury, one of the worst heinous types of crimes you can ever commit in society, sexual assault and or a rape. And the insult to the injury was that we had this tremendous backlog and even processing rape kits. We had a lot of issues. We actually had a mandate in my committee where we had the police department come and report quarterly to let us know if they were catching up and where things were at. This was the number one type of crime we had to solve in my mind as well. And so you guys were phenomenal partners. We caught up. We've been caught up. We haven't had a backlog now in years, but we're getting pushed back where a lot of hospitals and other providers don't want to administer the kits because they're not getting even full cost recovery. And that's all they're really looking for, and that's all that this will do is put them online with what the county and everybody else is paying. So it's nominal, and I think it's the right thing to do, and we should do it right away. So
I could add to that we recently had a case where a victim was sexually assaulted in the city of Los Angeles. She happened to live in Ventura County. She went back and reported it to the city where it occurred because that was the closest law enforcement agency. That agency contacted us and said they would not perform a sexual assault kit on it because it was too costly for them. So we had to go out and transport her to our city where we would pay for it. What I don't want to do is have victims that are outside the city come to our city and have that same type of thing. So I think this is an important thing to do the right things for the victims, as we've already done with reducing the backlog on the cases.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, just you say a rape kit, sexual assault, same. Are there 2 different tests, 2 different?
They're a part of it, sir. Or what happens is when the victim is sexually assaulted, there's an examination that's done, and one of it is to look for physical evidence of the crime, and bruising, and tearing, other types of things that are consistent with the sexual assault or the crime. The other is the collection of the physical evidence that can be analyzed forensically. Okay. In some cases, no forensic evidence may be recovered, but physical evidence may be taken. And then what we do is we take that in, and the lab will examine that as a sexual assault evidence kit and examine it to see if they can find evidence of DNA. So it's the first process to get to the sexual assault evidence kit that we're talking about. The analysis is a separate part at the lab.
Well, these investigations are very important, and to the extent we can provide additional funding to cover those costs, I think we should.
What we've done is we've made it consistent throughout the county. The Board of Supervisors has raised it as well to the 1020. So what we would be doing is being consistent throughout the county to reimburse the providers.
Okay, well, any other comments? If not, I would move that we instruct the CAO with assistance from the Personnel Department to report back on the fiscal impact of approving this motion and whether the city should perform its own fee study and then refer this item to the Budget and Finance Committee.
If I could, just to speed it along, and a point well taken, is to approve it out of this committee with those conditions to go, because it has to go to budget anyway with that. So it doesn't really have to come back here if it's just a budget
That's true.
analysis, that it just go on, and rather than cost any more time, we approve it for what it is, but on the budgetary impact portion of it, the fiscal impact, that just goes to budget because it normally has to go there anyway. So if that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great idea, so we don't slow it up.
Yeah, great.
But we do that analysis on its way to Budget and
Budget,
Finance.
which has to be done anyway, right.
Yeah, and some of us are on that anyway, so we'll continue to keep an eye on it. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you,
and
Councilman.
that will be
Thank you.
approved without objection.
Thank you to the chair and also to all of you for allowing us to take them out of turn, if you will. So appreciate
And now we will take testimony on item number 11. And pardon?
I just wanted to make sure that you let everybody know that speaks here for the fur, whether they're opposed or for it, if they could speak into the microphone, because then other
Yes, if we're having trouble hearing them, we will always make that instruction. So the first three speakers will be speakers in opposition. Greg Zuck, to be followed by Judy Zuck and Danny Zuck. And I believe those are our opponents to the motion.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to hear me speak. If you vote on the motion before you today, you are voting on a document that we verified was pulled almost word for word from a 2008 animal rights white paper that is not only outdated, but is ideological more than factual. So from my perspective, it's a lot of lies that discredit what I do from organizations that don't believe in my right to exist. It's hard to believe that the city would even consider an ordinance based on any study a decade old. In this case, it's a study filled with misrepresentations that have been refuted sentence by sentence. If you really want to learn about animal welfare within the fur industry, the role we play in wildlife conservation, and at the international, national, and local government, and the international and local government agencies that regulate us, then we are more than happy to spend time educating you and make sure you have all the appropriate information to make your decisions. Do not give in to the lies and misrepresentations of special interests. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Judy Zuck?
Thank you. Los Angeles prides itself as a progressive city. You say you are accepting of diversity when actually you aren't. I find the proposed ordinance to ban the sale of fur as total intolerance. Only if I agree with what you are trying to impose are you accepting of me. As an individual, I choose what I want to wear and what I want to purchase. The majority of women, and men as well, agree with me. This is why so many department stores, boutiques, and generational fur salons handle the product. The register continues to ring because there is demand. I believe in your right to choose what you want to wear or even what you want to eat. But you must also be tolerant and let me choose what I want to wear. Why would LA City Council want to force a ban that would take away our freedom to choose? Thank you.
Thank you. Danny Zuck?
Wednesday, August 4th meeting, led by Paul Koretz regarding a fur ban in Los Angeles. He made a statement that he really doesn't care if this ban puts a few people out of business. Please note, there are more than a few people involved in the fur trade in Los Angeles. They are humans with real families, real faces that provide a benefit to the population of Los Angeles. They pay rent, buy food, clothing, own homes, and they probably supported your election. If one human is hurt from this ban, it should not go forward. Do you really want to be involved in a statement like that? If you want factual information about the fur industry, go visit a modern fur farm. Call a farming veterinarian. Ask a wildlife biologist. But don't rely on animal rights propaganda that wants to see all animal use stopped in the world. People can think for themselves. If they want to make a purchase of a fur garment, they have the freedom of choice.
Thank you. If you can wrap up that sentence.
The freedom of choice to do so. They know where the fur comes from. They don't need a public official to tell them what to buy.
Thank you. And now, speakers in favor, and you all have 1 minute as well. Shari Shankar, Mark Ching.
He's got a question.
More people in favor. Maybe there was some technical issues at the kiosk, but there's quite a few people here.
In opposition?
Yes.
Who else is present here in opposition? 1, 2, 3.
There's an overflow room that's full.
Well, let's start with. Well, I don't know how it didn't come through, but I will take the 3 of you that are here, and if there are others in opposition, you can come in from the other room.
Can I give my spot to Mark?
No, you can't. You can't, and I'm going to continue taking opposition now that I understand there are people here.
And
So-
for clarification,
so there's no reason to come up.
If I can
Sheree.
ask the chair for clarification in opposition of the proposed ban.
Yes.
Correct. Okay, just for the wording, so
Yes.
they understand in the other room. Okay.
Yes. So if the 3 of you want to come up. And all 3 of you might as well come up to save some time. And just for the record, if there are people outside trying to disrupt the meeting, you can feel free to encourage their departure from the building too. Why don't you start and please state your name?
Sure. We have 60 seconds, is that correct?
Yes, 60 seconds.
I'm Greg Schumacher, founder of SAR Solutions. I'm going to play a video coverage for you of what happened to my family and our business for 2 years and the terror that we went through. We're the oldest fur company in America since 1895, and they put us out of business. We tolerated this for 2 years and still tolerating it 12 years
I'm not
later.
sure that this is on topic. We've seen
is
enough
on
to get the
topic?
idea.
No, this is exactly what if you pass this ban, this is exactly what you're supporting. Animal rights groups such as this.
No,
So
we're
it's important that you do
supporting
view this.
concerns about animal cruelty. We're not supporting this kind
It's
of
not
protest.
animal cruelty. The only people that are cruel are the animal rights groups to humans.
Okay, well, thank you. Your time is up, so please turn that off. Next.
Hi. I'm speaking for the fur industry, for my colleagues, and for me. I'm gonna
What's
make
your
this
name,
thing-
please?
My name is David Appel. I'm a furrier. I'm a third-generation furrier. I've been a furrier for 52 years. Lots has been said in this room today, but I would like it to make it a little bit more personal. Okay? I came to this country in 1975, joined the union, and worked as a furrier. In 1986, I opened my own business. I've been working at average of 10 to 12 hours a day building my business, supporting my family and my workers in hopes that one day I could pass the business to another generation or sell it to realize the fruits of my hard labor and retire. Now I'm threatened by a minority who is driven to do what? To dismantle, so I should dismantle and close my business? Not to be able to sell it or to pass it on? How about human toll? My workers could lose their livelihood. How about me?
Could you wrap
The
up,
fruits of
please?
my
Your
labor.
time is up. You can wrap up your sentence, but your time is up.
Okay. So I want to continue with another piece over here, if I may, okay?
No, your time is up. I give everybody a minute, so.
Okay, so how will I be compensated for all these years that I put my effort into the business? How will my family be compensated for this? This is
Thank
un-American.
you. Your time really is up.
All right,
So-
I'm going to ask the sergeants, specifically if I can, for the chair, to actually escort out whoever's in the hall making the noises. they're not keeping it down. They've been warned, but to actually escort them out of the building, and I can guess that it's probably Wayne Spindler and Armando Herman. So if those are the two individuals who I saw making the same noises when I walked in, and they've already been told to keep it down on a half a dozen occasions during this meeting, it's very disruptive. Go ahead and please escort them out so you've got the instruction to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought we already gave that instruction. But
The instruction has to be specific, it's not discretionary on the sergeant at arms. So we've got to be very specific and ask him to do that, carry it out. So,
thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Harry Naim. Me and my brother opened Fair store in Los Angeles about 37 years ago. And since then, we have paid a lot of money, millions of dollars as a tax to the city of Los Angeles. And we have family, we have our children, we have our business, everything. How the city suddenly wants to close our business, and what do we do with our inventory, with our debts, have you thought of all of these problems that we go through? It's not just something that they say, okay, close and go. There is a lot of problem coming after that. Debts, we have our own expenditure, home rent, payments, all these things. And 37 years we have been paying a lot of tax, millions of dollars tax to the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, there's some other speakers against the ban that are outside. You said 15 people respectfully, and they're not being let in to speak.
Well, we've directed them, but if they actually are not being let in, if we could communicate with the sergeant at arms to allow more people in to speak, that would be great. Do we know if there were other speakers out there?
Yes, there are other speakers, sir.
So have we let them in to speak?
How do you want 3?
I think we could let in up to an additional 9 speakers in opposition.
9 speakers in opposition.
Yeah. And the first 3 can come up and sit at the dais here. And if you would please give us your name to begin with and keep to 1 minute time.
Okay, my name is Keith Kaplan, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Front page in today's LA Times. The Trump administration plans to roll back fuel economy standards based on information that the EPA knew was flawed and unsupportable. And I bet that makes you angry. But today, this motion on the fur ban is moving forward on the same kind of flawed misinformation and lies. I urge you to take the time to study this issue and get the truth and the facts. Mr. Koretz, you may recall in 1988 you called me up at home and asked me to come to your home to educate you about outdoor advertising when an issue on Sunset Boulevard was on the city agenda, and I did so. I'm hoping you can be that man today and take the time to allow me to set you up with fur farmers, with wildlife biologists, to get the truth about this industry, the standards that exist, and the regulations that exist, so you can move forward on fact, not fiction. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Nicole Smith. Based on the understanding that LA is a city that has built its reputation on unbridled creativity and the ability to express it, I can't stress enough how this ban on fur will deeply affect it. As a stylist who works with some of Hollywood's finest personalities, I have seen firsthand how the freedom to choose fur and build a style profile and brand around it, and the visual impacts of it, affects the success of individuals. These individuals create brands and appeal for Los Angeles that is immeasurable. Cachet, revenue based on tourism, social media reach, etc. The list is endless. I ask you to please consider all of the costs and economic factors at stake today. Fur is not just about fashion. It's about a right to pursue one's livelihood through creative expression. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Daniel Wachtenheim, Paul Koretz. I'm in your district. You're not representing me if you're putting this fur ban forward. But this, to me, the animal rights activists and PETA have been promoting this anti-animal usage for years, for decades. No meat, no wool, no chicken, no fish. This is really about freedom of choice. If you let the consumer decide, they can decide whether to wear a fur or not wear a fur, whether to go to umami burger or whether to go to veggie burger, whether to use it for religious purposes or not use it for religious purposes. It's really not your place to decide for the city of Los Angeles what to do from your personal conviction. I know you're a very big animal rights supporter, but it's not your place. Let the people decide and let them choose where to spend their money, where to shop. Tourists come here to LA, they spend their money, and it's really about the choices that people make, how they act as consumers, how they make their moral choices. Is that my time up?
Yes.
Thank you very much, and I really hope you consider it, Mr. Koretz.
Thank you. Next three speakers, if there are still three more in opposition in the room.
Me first?
Yes, please. And
yes, my
please
name
state
is
your
Peter
name and
Francis, and I'm in the fur trade for the past 50 years. It's a trade that is well regulated and 100% legal by the government of the United States. Anybody that does anything against the regulations and laws, they're punished. Heavy fines or imprisonment. So basically, in my personal opinion about the whole thing is, and maybe I sound repetitious, but it's freedom of choice. I live in a society where freedom of choice is a principle. The principle is a piece of truth. If I believe in this principle, and I choose to make a motion about something that I personally dislike, that's a double standard. That's all I got to say.
My name is Andrea Helms, and I'm here to represent one of the many employees of the fur industry. I've been working in this business since I was 15 years old. It's really all that I know. Without this job, now as a mother of two and a wife responsible for raising two children and taking care of my husband, I don't know what else I'll do. This is really a trade, a craft, and it's something that I have spent many years learning and mastering. And without this job, like many others, I don't know what we're going to do. There is a woman who works in the warehouse, where I work. She's been there for 30 years. And I don't know what else she would do. This is her craft. So this is about people. This is not just about animals or whatever you believe. This is about real life people. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Judith Moss. I was asked to do pattern and design for the fur industry in the early 80s. And I want to speak a little bit more from my background. I was grown in Wisconsin, on a small town on Lake Michigan, population about 33,000. My uncle had a small mink ranch. My brother worked his ranch. My brother worked a larger ranch in New Holstein, Wisconsin. My sister inoculated the animals while she was on college break. It helped pay for her college. And as all of our industries were sent overseas, along with the fur industry was one of the earlier ones, my uncle had to, of course, close his ranch. A livelihood that had raised 3 children, a modest income, but could send them to college, take pride in his work, take pride in his life, the whole family. Now, fast forward, I moved to LA, asked to design for the fur industry because I have fashion background. But back to the ranching and the closing.
Please wrap up your sentence. You're out
Okay,
of time.
I'm sorry. Along with closing the fur industry, my solution would be help bring the fur ranching back. We had a humane industry. I saw the animals. They were not unhappy. They were very humane. You don't have a good product unless you have a humane industry for the animals. They live a longer and
Thank
better
you.
life.
Your time is up.
One
Thank
more
you.
thing.
No.
My
Your
town
time is up. Please
I'm sorry
leave
you
and
won't
make room
allow
up
me
for.
to conclude the main point.
Sorry, you're limited to a minute. I gave you a few extra seconds. If there are three more speakers in opposition,
I'm also going to ask if I could. I'm not sure if she's staff.
That was the next thing I was going to say is you can't be up here at the dais if you're just a member of the public, so please remove yourself now. And we're not going to continue until you've removed yourself. Hopefully we don't have to do that for you. Keep going. Thank you. And last three speakers in opposition. Whoever would like to start.
My name is Anna Lamberti. I oppose this ban. I'm in this business for over 30 years. We have a fantastic business. People come from all over the world to buy from us. We're customers, they buy. Let them choose what they want to wear. Let me choose what I want to eat, what I want to wear. If you don't want it, wear any fur, I respect you. Don't want to eat meat, I respect you. So I deserve the same respect back from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Kortz. Being an Armenian, just like your colleague, Mr. Krikorian, we came to America for freedom of choice, for a free country, for all the goodies that this country is blessed with. So now, being the only breadwinner in my house, I raised 2 kids. I have a disabled husband. I work here for 12 years in my company. So you want to see more, I'm sorry to say, homeless people around you when you come to work every morning? I don't think we're doing any harm. All we do is bring money to the country, to the city, I should say, to Los Angeles City. If you could check, I mean, the demand is huge. There's no harm to no one. And again, the main point is a free country, freedom of choice. And we need to put bread on our table. I'm raising 2 kids with a disabled husband at home. This is the only job I know. So God forbid if this happens, I have to go to an unemployment and sit on the corner and beg, which I really do not want to do. So please, as a father and a husband, I'm sure you would consider this and go for the right decision. Thank you.
People shouldn't have to come in here
Name first.
and beg you
Sir,
for their jobs.
name first, please, for the record.
Oh, my name is David Miller. I find that appalling. And with the homeless situation right outside these walls that we witness every day, where do you find the time and the energy to focus on a fur ban? Get a handle on this problem first. Please.
This is terrible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll start taking speakers in support. Shri Shankar, Mark Ching, and Veronica Rafkin to start. And we'll take 15 speakers in support as well and read everyone else into the record that we're aware of.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Shri Shankar. So I've heard some tears about some people who, might lose some jobs, but where are the tears for the animals who live their entire lives in these tiny cages, who are killed in such atrocious ways, anally shocked, a million other ways that Mark will go into. So there are no tears for the animals. When you talk about humane treatment, Michael Kors, who has carried fur in his fashion line for years, spent a year trying to find a humane way to produce fur. He could not. He announced this year that he will no longer use fur in any of his lines going forward because he could not find a humane way to raise and kill these animals for garments. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
My name is Veronica Rafkind. I'm here with Animal Hope and Wellness and Animal Hope and Legislation. Los Angeles
is not a city that tolerates businesses that are built on cruelty. When elephants were subjected to cruel treatment by circuses, LA passed the bullhook ban, and circuses made money off of the exploitation of these animals. This is a city that passed the ban on the sale of puppy mill animals in pet stores. Another example of choosing ethics over profits. No amount of PR spin or welfare washing can hide the fact that this is an industry that causes harm to animals for no good reason. We're a progressive city of animal lovers. I also want to speak to some points that were brought up earlier. Demand doesn't necessarily preclude you from passing this ban. There was a demand for shark fin soup. There was a demand for dogs from pet stores. There was a demand for seal fur, and that is now federally prohibited. Freedom of choice is limited. We have to think about ethics.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark from Animal Hope and Legislation. I was going to talk about something else, but hearing the opposition changed my mind. They've talked about freedom of choice and being human. A long time ago in our country, slavery was legal, and in time we learned that it was wrong, and we made laws to be more human. And as time goes on, we're learning about new industries or new things, the treatment of animals or other people, and we're banning those things, and this is no different. For anyone who says that fur is humane, nothing is humane when it comes to the skinning of animals and killing of animals. I have a video that's 15 seconds. I showed a video last time, but for anyone who has an objection to this, you have to watch this. And I'm just going to show it real fast because it speaks for itself. If one animal
Okay, you're just about out of time, so if you're going to do it quickly.
That's what matters. This is unedited. This is true. So thank you.
You're out of time now, so we get the message.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Next three speakers.
Can I
are-
submit something to the record?
Please.
Okay. It's a letter from several veterinarians and wildlife specialists, including Jane Goodall. They wrote a letter to the UK Parliament when the UK Parliament was considering a similar ban.
You can give it to the clerk. The next three speakers, Ana Valverde, Matt Roselli, and Ben Williamson.
Good afternoon. Thank you for
Good
having
afternoon.
me. I wanted to touch specifically on faux fur, which we covered a little bit last time. Faux fur has become a major loophole in the fur industry. According to the SPCA, China accounts for 80%
Did you
of
give your
global.
name, by the way?
Yes. Oh, Ana Valverde from
Thank
LA Animal Save. I apologize. According to the SPCA, China accounts for 80% of global fur trade. China has no animal welfare laws in place. The demand for fur is often satisfied with dog and cat fur from stolen pets. I would argue that most consumers would not knowingly purchase dog and cat fur. The good news is that a fur ban would raise consumer awareness and reward businesses who are doing faux fur the right way. India, one of the poorest countries in the world, banned fur imports in 2017. Every country that has banned fur farming or imports have used a phase-out period. The key word is transition. That's what we do as a society. Transition, progress, and just try to be better people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ben Williamson. I want to thank council members Bob Blumenfeld and Paul Koretz and Mitch O'Farrell for working to move Los Angeles forward. Nowadays, there are so many luxurious, warm, synthetic fabrics that can replace fur, such as recycled polyester or synthetic shearling for clothing. So with so many progressive and humane options available, there's simply no reason to continue selling fur. Doing so supports this violent industry that we've heard all about. It causes immense animal suffering. LA is better than this, so I urge you to support this fur ban. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matt Rosell. I'm with Rescue and Freedom Project, and I'm going to present you all with a copy of this documentary, Skin Trade. Our director, Shannon Keith, directed this, did hundreds of interviews with everyone throughout the industry, and it really gets to the bottom of this savage industry and how far they go to deceive the public in the inhumane practices that are just commonplace. I am interviewed in this documentary for my role for working 4 months undercover during the pelting season of an Illinois fox farm, and I'm here to tell you there is no regulation in this industry. When we brought forward evidence all these state agencies in Illinois were pointing the finger at each other, trying to figure out who even regulated them, who was supposed to investigate. When they came in, there was a slap on the wrist. This place is still in business. Anal electrocution is the industry standard, but these foxes were not even offered water for weeks at a time because this guy was like, who cares, they're going to die anyway. He told me the first sign of dehydration in a fox is when they bleed out of the rectum. I could go on and on telling you about what happens in the fur industry, but thank you so much.
Because you're out of time, but
Thank you so much for bringing this forward to the city.
Thank you. Diana Mendoza, Deanne Thompson, and Bella Nelson.
Hello, I'm Diana Mendoza. Banning fur sales would not only save countless animals' lives, as everyone has already mentioned, but it would also protect our fragile environment. From the immense amount of waste produced by animals on fur factories, to the water-contaminating chemicals needed to stop fur pelts from decomposing, to the massive amounts of energy used in fur production, fur is an environmental disaster. Please uphold Los Angeles' reputation as not only a progressive and compassionate city, but as a model for eco-friendly legislation by voting in favor of this ban. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Deanne Thompson with the Humane Society of the United States. And I just wanted to say that the heinous cruelty behind the fur trade is well documented, and its environmental impact is vast. No matter where the animal fur comes from, pain and suffering is guaranteed. There's a lot of talk today about choice, but the animals cannot choose, and they would absolutely not choose to be treated that way and live in such pain. I also wanted to say San Francisco's chief economist said that we believe that the proposed legislation is unlikely to have a significant economic impact overall regarding the sales ban. LA has a critical opportunity to be a part of the solution and join other cities like San Francisco, West Hollywood, Berkeley, and so many countless companies in focusing on the future and leaving behind and moving forward in sustainability, innovation, and compassion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bella Nelson. I drove all the way here just as a concerned citizen. I support this ban mainly because I think our government has a responsibility to uphold the standards that we have set as a country. And a lot of the fur that we have here being sold is not from this country, it's from China, where they don't have any standards. So I think it's our responsibility to do that for everyone and educate everyone. And also there's, I think, a demand for it because people don't know where it's coming from and the heinous things that are happening in the background. So it's our responsibility to bring that to light. Thank you.
Thank you. Next three speakers, Patty Shankar, David Salazar, and Matthew Duncan. And Patty, please have a seat too. So whoever would like to start.
Ladies first? Okay. Well, I want to thank you for introducing this ban. It's time to do this. Designers like Versace, Michael Kors, Gucci, Giorgio Armani, Tommy Hilfiger, and DKNY have all finally stopped using fur. In March 2018, Donatella Versace announced that her family's brand will no longer use real fur in its products, saying, "Fur? I am out of that. I don't want to kill animals to make fashion. It doesn't feel right." The truth is, there is nothing glamorous or beautiful about wearing fur. Animals are not fabric. They're sentient beings who suffer terribly to make these products. In closing, I will just say, paraphrase Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "Laws may not change the heart, but they can restrain the heartless." And that's what this ban will do, is restrain the heartless. I want to cry hearing those people who say it's their choice to do this. We need a humane nation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Matthew Duncan. I just wanted to comment on a couple of fairly recent policy changes in the state of California that involve the fur industry. In 2014, the California Fish and Game Commission banned coyote killing contests in California. 1 year later, the same commission banned the trapping of bobcats. The commission received national recognition and support for these changes, and I commend them for that. They did the right thing, and I commend you for your efforts to also do the right thing. I do support the fur ban.
Thank you.
I just wanted to
Name first, please.
My name is David Salazar.
Thank you.
I wanted to put my support for the fur ban. I'm here to speak up for the voiceless. Those animals cannot speak up for themselves. I have no monetary gain by speaking up for them. I just do so because it's the right thing to do. All the reasons that I heard in opposition for the fur ban seem to stem from personal reasons, personal gain, monetary gain. If you really look into it, you'll see the truth. And you'll see the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. Last three speakers in favor: Leslie McCabe, Christina Sewell, and Annie Chung. Many more. No.
Hi, my name is Christina Sewell, and I'm here on behalf of PETA and our nearly 30,000 members and supporters in Los Angeles to urge you to support the proposal to ban the sale of fur in the city. PETA investigations into the fur trade over the last 3 decades have revealed that foxes are anally and vaginally electrocuted, as you heard earlier, rabbits are electroshocked, minks suffer from open wounds and eye infections, and much, much more. This is business as usual in the fur industry, and that's why legislators around the world have begun shutting down fur farms, and that's why hundreds of major designers and retailers have committed to their own fur bans, as you heard earlier, and they're using cruelty-free, truly sustainable materials instead. When we know better, it follows that we should do better. New ideas and inventions create shifts in the labor industry, and they require job retraining and restructuring. That's just the way it is. This allows for social progress. Ours is a progressive city. Let's prove it by taking this step and inspiring the rest of the nation to take similar actions to protect animals, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Annie. Annie Chung. Fur is only natural when it is on its original owner. Toxic chemicals that are used to dye fur and to keep pelts from rotting, including ammonia, formaldehyde, hydrogen peroxide, and other chromates and bleaching agents, they just pollute our rivers and lakes and render finished fur products non-biodegradable. A vote to ban fur is also a vote for the environment. So please, I urge you to pass this progressive green law.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Leslie McCabe, representing Animal Defenders International, again in support of the motion to draft an ordinance to ban the sale and manufacture of fur products in the city, with thanks to sponsors Blumenfield, Koretz, and O'Farrell. We've provided you by prior email data supporting this necessary action, including one of our investigations into this terrible industry. Referencing the legislative analyst report, we support a broad definition of fur and prohibited actions for the sale, import, trade, distribution by any means, and the ban of fur products, displays, advertising, sales in other localities. ADI investigations show nightmarish industry standard practices where animals' miserable lives in cramped, filthy cages abruptly end by electrocution, suffocation, broken necks, or worse, if there is such a thing as worse. Some are still conscious and breathing even after they're skinned. We urge you to vote yes and to move forward with this necessary and humane action. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe that is 15 speakers in support. So unless someone tells me on staff that I counted wrong, we will list the names and read them into the record of all the other supporters. But unfortunately, we won't be able to speak in the interests of time. We've already lost one member, and we need to have one here to cast this vote. Alex Cherrick, Casey Kern, Juliana Ferraz, Zachary Reisinger, Megan Oaksness, Matthew Braun, Christina Sewell, Brian Rupenkamp, Silvio Curtis, Kate Lorette Smith, Anna Lamberti, Vanessa Marsotte, Mary Calende, Elena Roberto, Renee Penny, Jackus Chert, Stephanie Terranzas, Ryuji, Hannah, Rabbi Jonathan Klein, Corey Mack, Lindsay Alexander, Peter Lyritsis, Judith Moss. So I apologize to the people that were not able to speak. I see another person in the back that's raising their hand. What's just your name?
It's Casey Kern.
Casey Kern.
I wanted to ask if I could give this evidence to the clerk.
You can pass anything you'd like on to the clerk, yes. But I think the public hearing is now closed on this item. I would say we saw video at the previous hearing that I think our colleagues were squeamish in seeing the video here, but what we saw made this look like nothing. I mean, I thought I knew everything about this trade, and I saw practices that were cruel beyond my knowledge. I would say there are parts of the industry that are less cruel than that, but I think we have to judge it by the standard of the worst because we have no way to differentiate. And I think even the least cruel, there's no positive way to view skinning an animal for its fur other than a cruel practice, in my view. I think a fur ban in LA, because of our fashion and stardom and everything else, will probably make more of an impact than any other city in the world that would do this. And I believe that this will set a tone worldwide that will bring us more quickly to where I think we inevitably will be, which is a country and a world that bans the use of furs. That skinning a sentient being is not a practice that can be described as anything other than cruel. I don't think letting the market decide is a solution. We could apply that to human trafficking and say, sure, we'll let it go on as long as there are people that want to have sex with trafficked people. But I don't think the market is appropriate to decide. And certainly if you ask the animals, which we don't have a good way to do, they would all tell you they don't want to be skinned alive for their fur. But I think we have to take an action as their voices, the voices of the voiceless. I won't say that I'm completely closed-eared to the pleas of people whose livelihoods depend on this, and there are some. And so I think we have to figure out some sort of phase-out period and not just throw people that are employed in this industry into the street. We did the same, honestly, with the bullhook ban. And it was important because of what the ultimate goal was, which was reached many years earlier, which is to eliminate the use of elephants in circuses, because there, again, was no way other than the most cruel way to keep them there. And we all knew they were hit with bull hooks behind the scenes, and we did have to rely on videos that were taken, undercover videos, to see what was really happening. But when you see a trainer go down a line of circus elephants and whack them with a bull hook, when they say, oh, we never do that anymore, they just see a bull hook and they know, well, it's not true, it's a cruel practice. And while we thought that would move things along and in the next 15 or 20 years that practice would be eliminated, it turned out it was eliminated in the Ringling Brothers circus almost instantly. And I think the case is here as well. I think the symbolism of our doing this is as important as the reality, and so if we give a phase-in period, I think it will still have the desired effect countrywide and worldwide of having LA one of the fashion and glamour capitals of the world, if not the, eliminate the sales of furs. So I will ask that we look at a phase out as this goes to the council and the city attorney. I will ask that we continue to look at whether we should have an exemption for religious purposes. There are faux, what are they called? Strimals. There are faux strimals. They're accepted in Israel. They're not accepted here. With the few people that we're talking about, I think we probably should look at an exemption and have our ordinance discourage their use but not ban their use. So I would at least like to have the city attorney look at that. I think we'll also ask the city attorney to look at what we must do in terms of allowing animals that are trapped in the state of California to be exempted. It seems like it is a relatively minor factor since it will involve very few animals, but we'll ask the city attorney to look at whether we have a way to not have to pass that exemption. And so with those additions and with any further suggestions, Mr. Englander, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Point of clarification, you had suggested that there be a phase-out period as similar to what you did in previous legislation. Can you be more specific as if this is the instruction going on to the full body to instruct and request from the city attorney to draft the ordinance? I know the original motion called for January, which really isn't a phase-out if you call it that. That was, what was the year on
January
that?
2020.
Oh, 2020. So is that what you're looking at?
I don't know.
Because it already says that in the motion.
It's less than 2 years. It might not be an appropriately long
It's less than 2 years from now,
period
but
of
if you
time.
walk through, it would take, figure it's at a minimum 90 to 180 days from now to take effect. By the time it goes to council, the city attorney draft an ordinance, come back here, go back to council.
Might not be that quick either.
It might not be. So, is there a certain amount of time that you're suggesting from the time the ordinance takes effect to so many months after, to be specific?
I think in fairness, it's hard to see that people could extinguish their inventories, find other occupations, etc., with less than 2 years to do that. So maybe we should make it 2021.
Or effective 24 months after the ordinance takes effect, rather than a date.
Either way, I think they'll be pretty close to that.
Well, I'm just asking for very specific instruction if it's going to go to the council.
Yeah, I think we could do that 2 years after the effective date of
the ordinance. Okay. Then with all of your suggestions and modifications as well as instruction to the full council, that'll be a unanimous vote.
And one other thing that I think we should include, from my point of view, any fur is fur. So faux fur masquerading as not fur, I think, really shouldn't count. I think this should include all furs of any kind. So dog fur sold as synthetic fur, etc., should be viewed as fur. And I'd like to have the city attorney look at that.
I was going to say, if that's a very specific instruction, I'd be more comfortable, because I'll be honest with you, I don't know those nuances of the differences between some of those. So if the city attorney can report back with very specific instruction in the ordinance and spell out what that means as it's defined by law, I think it would help.
Yeah, the problem is that expensive fur is considered fur, and then inexpensive fur masquerades as synthetic. So a lot of your faux fur that you might think your daughter's wearing some faux fur on a piece of jacket is actually dog fur, for instance.
Well, again,
So-
if it's defined somehow, if the city attorney can give instruction spelling that out, I would ask
Yeah, I
for
think
that
we need
separately.
I'd need help with that from the city attorney.
So what I would
think we
suggest
wanna
is
ask for that.
that's a report back from the city attorney rather than part of the instruction to draft the ordinance so we can define what that means. So what I would ask is that, just so we know what we're looking at, is that up until the instruction portion, that be a report back from the city attorney on how we would define that, so we can
Right.
include it in the ordinance.
Right, but not slowing the process. So
No,
as
it doesn't
the city
slow it down.
attorney
It doesn't slow it down.
is working on the ordinance, they should come back with a preliminary report to us on that one item.
Yeah.
And so, without objection, that item passes. Nobody in the audience can just say anything. You've had your chance. Thank you.
Does that make sense? Yeah, so it's basically...
No, you have two. Next item will be item number 2. And we'll ask everyone to depart as quietly as possible. Thank you. Thank you. Once everybody has exited the room, entered the room, thank you, but we'll ask everybody to quiet down so we can conduct business. Thank you. Thank you. And I don't think we've announced the next item yet. Item number 2.
Item number 2, CEO report and resolution relative to the 2018-2019 Unfreeze Resolution authorizing all positions pursuant to the Los Angeles Administrative Code Section 4.132.
Thank you. Would please quiet down, everybody. We're trying to conduct the next item of business. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Janelle Irving with the Office of the CAO. In accordance with Admin Code Section 4.132, all vacated positions, other than those of officers of the city as defined by the Charter, may not be filled without specific authorization by City Council. The resolution before you today will provide departments that authorization for 2018-19 for all the positions.
Now,
Okay.
I have a bigger question on this one than just the item before us exactly. When did we start to have a freeze that requires an unfreeze? And
Every year we submit this unfreeze resolution, and what it is there's not a freeze. It's just that the charter does require that if a department wanted to fill a vacated position, they would actually need to get specific city council approval to fill a vacated position or a new vacant position. And so what we do to prevent every single department having to come before council for separate action to fill a position, we actually, as the CAO, put together the unfreeze resolution, which is allowing all
Right,
departments
so-
to fill positions.
so how far
To meet.
back does that go, and what generated it in the first place?
It's a charter requirement, so I don't know off hand whether
Well,
that was prior to our.
According to our records, it's an administrative code section
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yes.
rather than a charter, so we
It is
wouldn't
an
have to
administrative-
change the charter. When did that code section go into place, and why? And is it something totally outdated and unnecessary?
Yeah, I will have to report back to you on the dates of when it became part of the ad code and when that was included in there. I apologize. The officers section is in the charter, but you're correct that to fill the vacated positions is an ad code requirement.
I mean, it seems like an antiquated and unnecessary process, and something that really is micromanaging departments and GM decisions. And it's hard for me to understand why, if somebody dies on the job, that those positions become frozen rather than the general manager having the ability to manage their own budget. Obviously, the position was budgeted. If the position is outdated and they wouldn't replace it, they have the opportunity to make that decision. Why do we need to freeze and unfreeze positions?
I can maybe add a little bit to that. My name's Carolyn Cooper with CAO's office. I know this has existed I was with the city for 40 years, so it's existed at least probably 35, longer than that. I've always known it. Basically, it's only positions we've identified that have a classification problem or some issue that when they become vacated, we want them not to be able to be filled until we can look at whatever we've identified as a classification issue, or maybe it's been filled, there's an organizational structure issue. So it's not just any position that becomes vacated, it's only the positions that we've listed, which are usually just a handful.
And in this current year, we have not identified any positions that need to remain vacated, which is why before you is not a list of a handful of positions that should remain vacant. Instead, it is the city council's authority to fill all positions.
Now, in the section, it reads, authority to fill vacated positions. No positions vacated by retirement, death, resignation, discharge, transfer, or any other means of any person employed in any of the classifications enacted by this code shall be filled unless specific authorization is first granted by the city council. So those are any of the classifications. It doesn't mean that a unique circumstance has arisen that needs to be addressed.
Correct. And so in previous years, to provide that specific authorization, we have the unfreeze resolution in front of you today. In prior years, we have included specific positions, whether it is one. In prior years, we have had, I can't think of an outdated classification now, but a classification that isn't active very much, listed on there that once that position is vacated, we wouldn't fill it. And so in our current unfreeze resolution, there are no positions that we are requesting to remain essentially frozen or not filled throughout the year. And so that's why this is meeting that ad code section where you are giving the specific authorization to fill all classifications.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure that this is a legitimate continuing policy, and I think we'll take a deeper look at this. I'm not sure I have any objection to the specific motion that's before us, just whether this is a process the city should continue to go through, and whether it's actually vital and necessary, or whether this should go by the wayside. Mr. Englander, any comments?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for what you just said, in essence, it's really just becomes a matter of managed hiring. It's really all this is, creating another, if you want to call it an obstacle, or process, because these are all positions that were approved in the budget. But then you have to go through a number of hurdles to open them up if they're frozen or if they become available. Is that?
Well, and this is actually the authority that is required. So if we were to, without this resolution, they don't actually have authority to fill those positions. And that's why.
Meanwhile, they're budgeted.
They are budgeted. So that's why this resolution
And hence
is
they get
before
their
you
salary
today.
savings at the end of the year. It becomes this shell game of funding the departments, giving them positions, not filling them, having salary savings, and then putting it towards either a reduction, a surplus, or to some other department at the end of the year for the next fiscal year. Because essentially what it becomes.
And really, if it's an outdated position, I don't think it would be that difficult to work with department heads to correct that without having to do a freeze and unfreeze process. So I would recommend that we approve this item, but also come back with some legislative guidance to address this, what I think is an outdated and unnecessary process. And exactly, I've been trying to get at everything that smacks of managed hiring to make the process more streamlined appropriately and more in the hands of council and less in the hands of the bureaucracy. So
I'm good.
Without objection, this item is noted and filed.
Noted and filed, or
We're
it's
actually
approved?
looking for approved. Approved. Has to go to council.
Would the report not be a note and file?
I apologize. It would be to approve the item, Chairperson.
Okay, so this item will be approved without objection.
We have item 4 left on the agenda.
Item 4?
Item 4, CEO and City Attorney reports an ordinance relative to amending Los Angeles Administrative Code sections 4.203, 204, and 206 pertaining to voluntary payroll deductions to provide for updated language and remove non-union employee organizations that are obsolete or no longer eligible.
Hi.
Thank you. Hello again.
And just for the record, I'm not going to blow kisses when I leave out the door or cheer, but yeah, this is the boring, mundane work we do in the city. But,
We'll
yeah.
cheer for you on the way
Thank
out.
you. So Carolyn Cooper again, CAO's office. Basically, this is a follow-up to an audit, if you will, that the controller's office did that was long overdue to look at the non-union organizations that are listed in the administrative code to see if they still met the eligibility requirements. And it had been so long that there were 10 organizations that had no employees participating. Some of the organizations don't even exist anymore. And so this ordinance basically cleans up that list and goes from a list of 37 down to 27 organizations that are eligible for voluntary payroll deduction by employees. And in addition, there was some cleanup that needed to be done as well. Since it was last cleaned up, the fire and police pension system and the Los Angeles City Employees Retirement System, they administer their own respective voluntary payroll deductions based on rules adopted by their respective boards. So we cleaned it up for that. And there were some references to old pension system numbers that don't exist anymore. There was just some overdue cleanup. SCIU Local 347 was still identified that way instead of Local 721. So there's some housekeeping cleanup issues in that as well.
And anyone have enough enrollment on the payroll dues side but not enough membership to continue?
No, they it sort of failed in all respects. They the provisions require that besides having the membership, you have to maintain people, because the whole point of this is voluntary payroll deductions, and you have to have at least 100 employees contributing through voluntary payroll deduction, and there were 0. And the controller went back over a period of time. It wasn't like the last payroll period. And there were, I believe, 4 organizations that had less than the 100, but we decided at this juncture just to go forward to clean up the ones that had 0, and we'll monitor with the controller's office to see if enrollment goes back up, goes down. You know, we'll come back and visit that later, but we thought it was more important to do this initial cleanup now.
So the ones that were close calls are not being eliminated?
They're not being eliminated.
Are we notifying them that they're on the cusp in case they want to market to
We're actually working
members?
with the controller's office on that and in conversations with them about how to approach that.
So the ones that are chosen really shouldn't be very controversial. They're the ones that have been unsuccessful or aren't even around.
Yeah, I mean, if you Google some of them, they're not there. You know, they were way back, like the Affirmative Action Association for Women, which I actually, zillion years ago received a scholarship award for. They don't exist anymore, and nobody belongs to them.
Okay. Mr. Englander, anything?
No, I think it
questions,
makes
comments? I think it makes good sense. Not very controversial steps, just the obvious ones, it sounds like. So we will approve the CEO recommendations and the city attorney's report and draft ordinance without objection. And I believe that is everything except for, is 9 still not heard? Okay, item number 9. Oh, no, we did do that one. So the only thing that remains is general public comment. Are there any general public comments remaining? Okay, so I'm not sure how many of our general public comment people have already left, but I'll start reading their names if any of them are present. Randall Mello, Jonathan O'Hayon, Amy Davis, Ann Hager, Rob Adams, Allison Taylor, Kelly Mulroy, Erica Herod, Angela Don, Ann Hager, Inger Appelland, Kristen Sargent, Mr. Herman, and Renee Cipher.
Those are all
General public comments? I believe that, yes, I think those are all the general public comments. Actually, Wayne Spindler also has his general public comments.
We're done.
So we're done. We're closing the public comment portion of our meeting, general public comment, and we are adjourned.